Right, hello everyone, it's GOTW Blaze 91 once again here, and I'm recording this a little bit in the dark, which might be, harder to see, but I have got the light on, so hopefully this will eliminate some light in the background. But it is coming toward that time of the year where it gets dark pretty early, but I'm just gonna have to work with it. But anyway, today I've got a bit of a celebration. It's gonna be a little bit of a celebration video because the Xbox has turned 20 years. I know this is late, like several days late and all, but you know, better late than never. But I thought I'd take a look back at the Xbox brand, which is something that I've had going on in my life for a while, which I've never really talked about, which I never bring much up. But it's something that I've been somewhat supportive of, but dropped it, and somewhat supporting here now and then, because I at least have them, is what I have in my Xbox collection. Because if you turn to my left here, I've got a somewhat half decent collection of Xbox games, but this is merely just a small Xbox collection, just games only for the original Xbox and Xbox 360 games that I have just mashed together into a collection that I have right here. And I'm also going to talk about controllers that I have and whatever accessories that I own, which I don't own much, aside from some headphones, which I just use for voice chat. I don't really feel like I want to put those on the screen. But anyway, let's talk about the Xbox. Then, the Xbox was is a console brand that I back then, a couple of years ago as a kid, in like 12, 13 when it first came out. I think I was around 13 years old when the console came out in Europe. I know other countries got it back in 2001, but it was 2002 in Europe, when countries in Europe and the UK actually would finally get the console. And I was around 13, 14 at that time. Where the console would come out. And one of the games that's usually that always gets brought up when it comes to the Xbox launch at that time was Halo. I remember watching a TV commercial of Halo come out of fall, the very first Halo game that came out, being absolutely wowed by it. And then I've been hearing like it. We never owned an Xbox, but eventually my brothers owned an Xbox, and I never wanted an Xbox because I had a PlayStation 2 at the time, and I was really enjoying the PlayStation 2 a lot. And I thought to myself, there's no way I'm interested in an Xbox, and I just kept making all kinds of Xbox sucks jokes toward it, against it, saying the PlayStation 2 is better, and I'm just happy with it. And yeah, one of my older brothers had a GameCube. I had the PlayStation 2, and I was happy with it. And eventually my older brother would get a PS2, but later he would but I think one of my other older brothers had an Xbox. and I kept being, and everybody was kept forcing me into liking trying to play them on the Xbox, but I just didn't see an interest in it. I didn't see interest in an Xbox at all because it was attached to the PlayStation consoles, but I kept trying to hate on it because I kept hearing like some rumors. I'm not sure if that was true or not, but like it would scratch or damage discs or something. But I'm usually thinking that's if you like move the console or anything, if the disc is in the drive or something, or it would damage DVDs maybe. But the most common Xbox criticism that got when the original Xbox came out was the Duke controller. Yeah, the big fatty controller that it came with, that the original Xbox came with, the fat controller. Yeah, I'm making a Thomas the Tank Engine reference there. Yeah, the original old Xbox controller, which I have right here, which I'll show, is one of the things I'm now appreciative of. I actually like the original Xbox controller design of it, especially how chunky it looks. Before I bring it up here on the screen to show you, just look at it. I got it all tangled up here in wires, just because, why not? But yeah, this is something now I appreciate the original Xbox more of. It's because this controller here, look how beefy it looks. It's like one of the most unusual controllers you would ever see. But I think that's probably why that I did get invested in the game. I did somewhat of a small interest in the Xbox, is because of this controller right here. Like, you don't see many game controllers like this, where they're so chunky and massive. And the button layout is like so unorthodox. But it competed with the PlayStation 2's DualShock controller, where it would be a prime, interesting target for first-person shooters. And it was good. And surprisingly, it still handles the controls very well. Yeah, and I got my own thumb grips on top. These third-party thumb grips on top, because I really do, because if there's one thing I'm not entirely too keen on with the Xbox, is the little holes on the control, and I'll get around to that in a moment. So yeah, I was attached to the PlayStation 2, and eventually the Nintendo Wii, and then everybody was all like, you should get an Xbox 360. In which I had no interest, because, not only because I was more of a PlayStation, I was on the PlayStation side the whole time, and I would eventually get the Nintendo Wii. I chose the Nintendo Wii console of was it the 6th generation consoles? Yeah, the 6th generation consoles. I chose the PlayStation. There was the PlayStation 3, there was the Nintendo Wii, then there was the Xbox 360. Well, obviously the Xbox 360 came out first, then eventually the PS3 and the Wii. I eventually chose the Nintendo Wii, not only because the motion control games were simple, but it had all the Recon games as well that I cared about, and the compatibility with Nintendo GameCube titles, which some of them I had some interest in over what the Xbox 360 had on offer. Then of course there was the Xbox 360's red light issue, dreaded red light of death issue, which turned me instantly away from the console, and I just ended up hating on the Xbox 360 entirely. Because like after the release of the Xbox, the original Xbox, they would have learned how to design Microsoft would have learned how to design a console. But yeah, the Xbox 360 may have had the games to support it, but it wasn't to say that the Xbox 360's console could be handled, could handle itself, because the red light of death was when was like the console is left on for the console is on playing for a ridiculous amount of time. Usually, I'm not sure how long it would take for the Xbox 360 to overheat. Like either 5 hours, 10 hours, maybe? Who knows? I can't remember. But yeah, you would be playing the Xbox 360 and then all of a sudden the red light comes on. That red light of death is there and your console is toast. Finished. It's cooked its own guts. And people would have to rush their Xbox 360s over to get a replacement or get fixed. But at least they would get some kind of free game out of it. Sure, but I wouldn't say that the original Xbox 360 models were good. That's why I skipped it. But I didn't skip it for too long because eventually there was a game in the Tales of series which I was really looking to get and which I was really into at the time. I was really into these Tales of titles that was going to come out, and it only came out on the Xbox 360 console hardware. And it wasn't until 2009 when it would receive a localization in Europe. Yes, it was 2009 when they officially released it in Europe, in the UK. Eventually we got it, and yeah, my Xbox page would somewhat end, but it wouldn't end entirely until they released a all new Xbox 360 Model Slim, which fixed all the red light issues. It made the Xbox 360 stable, it would fix it, it would make it good, and I would finally can play it without any ticking. And then eventually I would then get Tales of Vesperia. This was a game that drew my attention to the Xbox. And eventually my relationship with the Xbox would get better over time. Like, it would improve over time. Like, I'd get into the Xbox 360 console a bit better. I would get some more games for it. I would play on it a fair bit. I'll join in on the online play. I'll renew subscription service. Like, it would be a fair console. I would respect. And then there was like, yeah, the PlayStation 3 would start getting more games in these Tales of series. And what the Xbox 360 was gonna get after this was all the Final Fantasy 13 crap. And everybody knows on my channel that I absolutely hate Final Fantasy 13 so much. Story, gameplay, the characters, especially stupid Lightning, who's the biggest offense and disgrace to the Final Fantasy franchise. Absolutely hate that. It would end. It would somewhat, and eventually, what was it? There were releases of later games in the Tales of series, Tales of Xillia 1 and 2, and Tales of Hysteria. I didn't want to sit out on any more Tales of games, and also Tales of Phonia Chronicles. I wasn't gonna sit out on any more Tales of games. I decided Oh yeah, and also Tales of Graces as well. Tales of Graces app as well. I decided to, you know what, I'm gonna get a PlayStation 3 to get the Tales of games I wanted to get that were gonna come out on it. Because the Xbox was missing out on these Tales of games. After how great Tales of Vesperia did on the Xbox 360, it would have been good if the Tales of series had kept going on the Xbox hardware. But there was another Tales of game that came out on the Xbox consoles outside the Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition, which I have on the PlayStation 4. And it was Tales of Arise, which I also have on the PlayStation 4 now. And then there was the release of the Xbox One, was it? Yeah, the Xbox One, which was, to me, it was kind of ridiculous to call it the Xbox One, because you already have the original Xbox, which is the very first Xbox console. But the Xbox One, but they called it the Xbox One, as they said, it's an all-in-one system. And I didn't like how they marketed the Xbox One as like this whole... Yeah, they were branding themselves toward TV entertainment too much. And how the Kinect was a forced integration to make the console work. And I didn't like it. I didn't care for the Xbox One at all. I had the Xbox 360. The games for the Xbox 360 and the games for the original Xbox were all I cared for the Xbox brand. But as soon as I got to the PlayStation 3, I started collecting games for the PS3 and swapping Xbox 360 titles for the PS3 counterparts for trophies. That's what kinda ended my Xbox relationship. Because the way that the Xbox One was marketed, like, being too much into TV branding than focusing, as opposed to focusing much more on like the new cutting edge new console. And how terrible the new the forced Kinect system was. And I'm not sure if this was also true as well. It didn't allow, pre-owned games to be operated on it. It turned my attention more to the PlayStation 4, in which I had the option to have PlayStation 4 of my oldest brother as a birthday present. And yeah, that's how it all kicked off. PlayStation, back to the PlayStation family I go. But I can appreciate the Xbox One for a couple of things. One, I can now admit that they at least acknowledged the complaints. People didn't like the branding. People didn't like the Kinect and removed Kinect ability for the later models. They would improve the backwards compatibility of Xbox games. Original Xbox and Xbox 360 games for the next consoles. But there was like a compatibility limit to the Xbox games. Working with either the Xbox One model or the Xbox 360 console that I currently own. I'll show you what Xbox I'm currently using right now on the PC. I've got it connected to my PC monitor right now, here. And I'm using this this 250GB slim Xbox 360 console. I know, and that's been connected to my PC for a while. I haven't used it much at all, aside from just organizing my games and whatnot. Yeah, but anyway, back to this. So there would be a compatibility limit to what Xbox games they could allow to be working on the next Xbox console due to like licensing. Because if you wanted to play a certain game, the developers would have to have agreements with Microsoft to allow this particular game to work on the Xbox One, and all it takes is for someone to say no, and they won't allow it. They won't allow the Xbox 360 they won't allow the Xbox 360 game to work on it. Or you could take this game, for instance, and all it takes for them to say is either they'll agree to get in contact with the developers who worked on the game and see whether or not they'll accept backwards compatibility for the new console, or they won't because they don't have the rights, because they won't agree to them or whatever. I'll show you the other games in a moment. And then there was the new Xbox console, which I never talked about, the Xbox Series SX. Now, granted, I have no interest in the Xbox Series SX myself, but what I can appreciate is the step forward they were going to take with the backward compatibility. Making backwards compatible with all of the original Xbox games, all of the Xbox 360 games, including Xbox Live Arcade, all of the Xbox One games, all of the. It was going to be like the ultimate Xbox console, but of course, again, there are limits. Because again, you've got to take into consideration licensing. They're not going to be able to get every single Xbox game from original to the Xbox One games working on the Xbox Series SX because of licensing. And all it takes is for the Xbox, the developers to say either yes or no, they will not allow this game to be allowed for backwards compatibility, and if they're not up for it, then that's it. The game's not going to run. It's not going to run on the new console. And the only way you could be able to play every single Xbox, original Xbox and Xbox 360 games, it's just to get the native Xbox consoles they were made for anyway. Like if I was to play this, I would get just the Xbox 360 console, which I still have plugged in. Or if I wanted to play, like say, the original Halo Combat Evolved, I would get it in the original Xbox console myself. Another thing is with the Xbox Series SX, and this is going with the PlayStation 5, I think. More so with the PlayStation 5, but I think it's the same deal with the Xbox Series SX. And it's going to be difficult to get your hands on, considering the state of COVID-19 and the component shortages, and it's going to be impossible, well, at least nearly impossible for me to get my hands on one. But if my family members, if my brothers end up getting the new Xbox console, and if they want to give me their Xbox Ones, I'd be willing to somewhat accept it, because for Christmas I'm planning to get the revised version of this controller, of the Xbox Dual controller, which will work with not only the Xbox One, but it will also work with the series. It will work with the new consoles as well as the Xbox One console. And I want to get it because it's a good way of supporting the Xbox brand, and it works with the PC as well. I am using this on my computer as well because I'm using a specific driver that would make it work on a PC using a cable, which will plug into USB on my PC, and installing a driver on it, and it does work. I've mostly just been trying it with emulator stuff, mostly the Super NES, Game Boy Advance, PlayStation 1, but for PC gaming, I've only tested one game out with it, but the driver is not fully recognized. Like, it has a certain limit with certain games, where certain buttons are not recognized properly. It's kind of a deal, but I'll have to play around in Steam to make this work. So anyway, that's a little. But do I see an interest in Xbox, in more of the Xbox? Maybe. Like, I am appreciating Xbox much more as an adult than I was as a kid. I am interested in the original Xbox controller design. Like, I want to play games using this thing because it's such a huge chunky controller. And if I were to get like an original Xbox console, I would, to play the old original Xbox games, because I got some original Xbox games right here. And yeah, they work on the Xbox 360 through backwards compatibility, but it's emulated, and some of the games run slower, some games run with glitches. So it's not perfect. Like, the emulation for Xbox games on the Xbox 360 is not perfect. So then, let's have a look at my Xbox games then, shall we? Now then, we're gonna start from the top here. We got Assassin's Creed 1 on the Xbox 360, which is an assassin type game, which is a game where you're this assassin taking out targets stealthily. Not a bad game. I'm not really that into the Assassin's Creed games, but I got it cheaply, so I kind of thought, why not? I have got the Assassin's Creed, I'm not sure if it's Liberation. Yeah, I think it's Assassin's Creed Liberation that has the first Assassin's Creed game on there as well. And while the PlayStation 3 version doesn't have trophies, this is the only version of Assassin's Creed 1 that has the achievements. So if I want to play Assassin's Creed with achievements, I can play that. There is Call of Duty Finest Hour, the first Call of Duty game to arrive on consoles. That's good, which is good. There's Call of Duty 2, which was a launch game for the Xbox 360. Really good. Again, really good. Then there's the original, and then there's the 5th generation console version of Call of Duty 2, which was Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1. Not a bad game. Then I got Call of Duty 3, which is good. Then I got Clive Barker's Jericho, which is an underwhelming shooter with cool concept, but it's let down by some poor gameplay choices. Condemned, an interesting first-person melee horror game, which is good. Conflict as a Storm 1, not that great, to be honest. It's got very wonky controls. It's pretty, and I didn't really play this one much. Then you got Doom 3 and Doom 3 Resurrection of Evil. What it is on the Xbox is a stripped down version of Doom 3 to be able to fit Doom 3 on an Xbox disc. But what it has worked with the limitations of the Xbox hardware is actually pretty admirable considering the hardware it's running on. And Doom 3 Resurrection of Evil is a fantastic expansion pack, and it's got the original Doom games on there as well. So those are really good. That's a fantastic Doom Collector's items. Then you got JRPG Eternal Sonata. The PlayStation 3 version is the more complete version, but this is still a solid RPG through and through. Far Cry Instance Predator, which is a 2-in-1 set of Far Cry Instance and Far Cry Instance Evolution, and they're both fantastic Far Cry games. Then I got Fear, which is First Encounter Assault Recon, which is a brilliant horror shooter series from Sierra, and it's very good, and it's absolutely creepy as well. Yep. And then you got Gears of War 1, Gears of War 2, and Gears of War 3. Gears of War 1 and 2 I played, I enjoyed those games. Gears of War 3 I haven't played much, because when I got Gears of War 3, I had some Xbox troubles. I lent my brother's brother's Xbox temporarily, and my brother had the new Xbox 360 console model, and yeah, my console would get the red light of death, and I would then get the slim model, and then by then I would have moved on to much other games instead, and I didn't play this at all, the third game at all. But I did get GOTW Judgement, which is the prequel to the events of the first Gears of War game, and it wasn't great, but certainly not awful either. Just the story is a bit of a mess, in my opinion. I didn't really get the story at all. Then there was Halo Combat Vault Anniversary. I did used to have the original Halo game, original Halo Combat Vault, but eventually I got the Halo Anniversary, which is the updated remaster of the very first Halo game. And then Halo 2, which is a superb sequel. Halo 3, which took a bit of time for me to get to know and like, but it's a really good game. Halo 3 ODST, which really took things in an interesting direction, where you did not play as the Master Chief, but you played as someone else. Halo 4, which I only touched once. I swear I only touched this game once, and it was just a multiplayer match, and yeah, I never played it afterwards. And then you got my all-time favorite Halo game, and it comes in this big box, Halo Reach. I got the limited edition box, which came with not only the game itself, but also the couple of extras with it. It came with the map of Reach. It came with a code where I can have the elite body, when I can have the elite armor for, when I'm playing as the elite. Really good game, and I still love Halo Reach to this day. And then there's Halo Wars, which is when the Halo series went into a real-time strategy, and yeah, it was a not bad attempt, and it was really good for what they were able to pull off on the console. Then I got Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2, a co-op zombie shooter. We're fighting off against wave of zombies, and it's still a very good co-op game, all things considered. And then I got Max Payne 2, the fall of Max Payne. This was a game I was hoping they would make it to the PS4 after they got Max Payne 1 on the PS4, but alas it didn't. But anyway, I got it. It's the sequel to the original outstanding third-person shooter, Max Payne. Really good game. Medal of Honor Rising Sun. I do want to get the other Medal of Honor games, but Medal of Honor Rising Sun is an all-round good game. But I wouldn't say it's as good as Frontline. And now we got, I can't pronounce this one. I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry. Which, this one's alright, I guess. Then it was Perfect Dark Zero, where it was a game that nobody liked, but it was one I personally liked, considering it was a prequel to the events. It was a prequel to the N64 FPS game Perfect Dark, which was one of my all-time favorite games on the Nintendo 64. And granted, this one tries. And I have seen way worse games than that, I'll put it that way. And then you got the Xbox 360 port of Quake 4, which is the worst way to play Quake 4, because this is the awfulest port of Quake 4, where it runs like absolute shit on the Xbox 360 console. The frame rate tanks considerably, especially when it goes into combat. But getting this version of Quake 4 is fine, considering it comes with Quake 2 on there. So that's pretty much my only reason I got it. It's because it has Quake 2 on there. And I have the disc that actually does include Quake 2 on there. Yep, the bonus disc. Slot that in, and there you go. You're on to Quake 2. You're playing Quake 2. And this game is a follow-up to Quake, is a sequel to Quake 2, which is a good thing. And now is Return to Castle Wolfenstein: Tides of War, which is the console version of Return to Castle Wolfenstein. It was gratefully expanded upon Return to Castle Wolfenstein's story. It does feel like its own port of Return to Castle. Pardon me. It does feel like its own version of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and it's fantastic. And it does include Wolfenstein 3D on there, but you gotta beat the game first to unlock it. Cop out. And now here's two of my favorite games on the system I own so far. Star Wars Battlefront 1 and Star Wars Battlefront 2. Two of the best Star Wars games out there. And especially an online Star Wars game. Star Wars Battlefront 2, the 2005 version, still holds up fantastically well. Even by today's standards, it's still brilliant enough to go back to. Now, I'd rather go back to this than the 2017 edition. And so much I like Star Wars Battlefront 2. Even the PSP version is way better than the 2017 edition. Given the limitations of the PSP. And the original Star Wars Battlefront is still fun to play. Granted, it's difficult to get back to considering it hasn't got much in comparison to Battlefield 2. Like being able to play as the Jedi. But it's still a good game. Then you got Star Wars Republic Commando, which I now know it is on the PlayStation 4, and I'm hoping to get my hands on the PlayStation 4 version as well for trophies. And this is another fantastic Star Wars first-person shooter where you're playing as the clone troopers. Well, members of the Republic. And it's another great Star Wars entry. And then you got one of the top contenders for worst Xbox game. Worst original Xbox game. Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines. It's an absolutely terrible game. Where it has absolutely poor graphics, poor gameplay, awful storyline. It's just a very terrible game. Then I got the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. I really got into this very well. I've been making all kinds of progress on it. And I did get reasonably far, but then eventually I just never got around to finishing it, which is sad. Next up, The Suffering, which is a first-person action hybrid action game where you're either shooting or solving a puzzle or two, or eventually taking control of a beast that's living inside of you. And then you do have some choices which will affect either the good ending or the bad ending. I think. I haven't played it enough to find out. Alright, then you got the Ghost Recon games of the Tom Clancy franchise of the Tom Clancy universe. Ghost Recon 1, Ghost Recon 2, Ghost Recon Iron Thunder, and Ghost Recon 2 Submit Strike. And they're alright. They're okay games. Like they're good. They're good games. Although I haven't really played much of them to find out. I do consider them entertaining and challenging. But yeah, they can. But I wouldn't say they're outstanding games. And then of course I have got Rainbow Six Lockdown, which is another entry in this Rainbow Six, which is, yeah, it's a tactical shooter where where like the Ghost Recon games, you're taking control of units, you're guiding your teammates around to disarm bombs, rescue hostages, maybe apprehending terrorists occasionally. Like, it's tactical stuff, and it's not bad, but I wouldn't call it anything incredible. And now we got 3 last games, which I'll bring around. You got the original 13. This is the version of 13 you should play, where it's got the self-shaded look, the self-shaded comic book style look that they were really going for back in the day. And this is a very unique game. And of its time, it was really one of the more games that's underappreciated or overlooked. But those who played it would speak highly of it. And whilst it's not a perfect game, it really is an impressive game compared to the remake that would ruin it. But yes, the 2020 version is the remake, and it's awful. I would rather get the original again for the GameCube, just so I could play it on GameCube, as opposed to getting a version on the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One, whatever, that completely goes against the original in every way possible. It's a broken mess. Unreal Championship 2. The Leandre Conflict. I can't pronounce it, sorry. Forgive me if I couldn't pronounce it. Sorry, my bad. And I would have gotten the Unreal Championship 1, but for some reason Unreal Championship 1 is not Xbox 360 compatible for whatever reason. And this is a fantastic entry in the Unreal Tournament series, where you can actually bring melee weapons into a gunfight. And it actually includes Mortal Kombat characters in it as a playable character, like Raiden. And it's really good. And then lastly, I got Rainbow Six Free Black Arrow, which is exactly the same as the regular Rainbow Six Free tactical shooter, where you're doing either bomb defusals, rescuing hostages, and keeping your squad mates alive. But again, still a good game. And that is all my Xbox games, including this right here. So, not a bad haul for my Xbox collection. I don't have an Xbox One, but maybe if any of my brothers are willing to part with their Xbox Ones, if they are going to get the new Xbox, I wouldn't mind taking it. Because again, I am getting this updated, revised dual controller for the Xbox consoles, which will work on the 20th anniversary version, which will come out for the which will come out for the Xbox, for the new generation Xbox consoles, the Xbox Series X, and it will work with the Xbox One, and it will also work with PC, which will mean I'll be able to use this for my PC gaming. Which, yeah, I'm setting it up. I'm setting up my Steam. I've already set up my Steam account. I'm just checking through what games I have physically on PC that I could get on Steam, which will offer me the latest patches that could get it to work on my Windows 10 PC. But let's also talk about what I do have in accessories that I do have. This hard drive transfer cable. Yeah, this is for when I had some Xbox troubles. And it was necessary for transferring my save data from one Xbox to another. And then I got 2 controllers for my Xbox. Here's the one I'm currently using. This is not a bad Xbox, not a bad Xbox controller. Now let's talk about the controller, the original Xbox controller, comparing it to the later Xbox controllers. Now the thing with most people complain about the original when people complain about the original Xbox, they didn't like the style of the original Xbox Fat controller, being how bulky it was, and especially how difficult it was for kids to play the Xbox games on it. So eventually they revised it with an S design, which was much smaller, and it had much more of a proper joypad design, and it was more suitable for younger audiences. But I appreciate that there's but it has gone on to become the controller people do look back fondly on. Hence the reason why people at Hyperkin is revising the Xbox Duke controller. And hell, I even love this controller. It's gone on to become one of my favorite controllers of all time now. And I would love to own an first original Xbox console to be able to use this on the original Xbox games that I currently own. And especially for games that I used to own for the PlayStation 2 that I haven't got anymore. And this Xbox 360 controller isn't a bad revisation, but one of the things that I never liked is the hole in the center of these sticks. I never found any of these comfortable, especially when they got these bits on it, sticking it and digging it into my thumb. Yeah, it's not entirely comfortable. Like I never found it comfortable. Hence the reason why I got myself these thumb grips. But I'm gonna get some new ones this Christmas, which will be small. Which will be ones like what this one is currently using here. So you can't see it because it's too freaking dark. But yeah. And here it is with the big thumb grips. Yeah, it's a bit more comfortable for me. Let's see if I can rest my thumbs. Because, yeah, like I stated, I'm more of a fan of the PlayStation style thumb grips, as shown with the. Let me just get it. Shame I didn't plan this properly. Here it is, as opposed to my third-party PlayStation 3 controller right here that I'm using. The Big Ben Wireless Interactive Controller, which I've yet to test on my PC. And this controller feels comfortable, feels absolutely comfortable, especially the thumb grips and how comfortable it feels on my thumb. Yeah, I gratefully appreciate this controller. Where is this? Yeah. Where is this? Yeah, I'm not feeling too comfortable with it. It's the reason why I put these thumb grips on top. But yeah, this is how I appreciate the. But this is one of the things I do appreciate the Xbox controller for doing. It's doing a style that the PlayStation doesn't do, because normally on the PlayStation the D-pad's right here and the analog stick is right here, but here it just changes that mentality, where it makes it fantastic for like shooter games where like your thumbs are not in the way of being in the way of one analog stick. So, and I appreciate it, and I like it. And again, I like this design, and this is why I'm going to be getting the new 20th anniversary Xbox controller for my PC. And that is going to be, and there's also I do have the other Xbox 360 controller wired, but the condition it's in isn't great. It's not in a good condition. It's wearing off. The wire's starting to come tacky. It's getting loose. It's getting to a point of it's being weared out. Even the buttons feel weary. Like, look at the B button is just feeling really off. You can tell it's been well used. And I've had the Xbox for like 10 years, over 11 years, nearly 11 years now. I've had my Xbox 360 for like 11 years. I've had the Xbox 360 for 11 years, but the slim model, I've had it for about 10 years now. I think 10 years, I think nearly over 10 years, 9 to 10 years, I would say. As I wouldn't get a slim model until like the I think somewhere around 2012 maybe. Who knows? This is as far as I remember. But yeah. So this is gonna do for my Xbox experience. I do enjoy the Xbox as a console. I like the games. I appreciate the games that have come out on it. I like that the Xbox is an interesting brand for marketing like hardcore gaming and competitive gaming. And I like the Xbox Duke controller, the original, and how the Xbox controller is like makes it an excellent target for shooters. I like the multiplayer, the online connectability, and I would normally would renew my Xbox Gold membership every single year, but I haven't bothered renewing my Xbox Gold membership for about 6 to 7 years. I haven't even bothered to renew my Xbox membership for years, for that long. Because I would then because I would go back to PlayStation 3, which had free online membership, and then eventually I would get a PlayStation 4, and I would enjoy playing the PlayStation 4 online. That I would continue to support the PlayStation 4, but to some degree, the Xbox branding is still something I just look back on in curiosity, and I do hope that in the future, with the future of Xbox, Microsoft is continuing to take the next steps forward with their Xbox branding, and continue to look back on the original old Xbox consoles, and hoping that it would invest my interest again on the Xbox platform and hardware. But for now, I just enjoy the Xbox console lineup for what it is. I will play on the Xbox now and then, but it's the lowest of my priorities because I'm playing on other games, and other games have taken my interest. But maybe if I'm bored and want to do something else, I will go and play on an Xbox game to support it. So I hope you guys taking my Xbox story in going from when I started hating on the Xbox console to liking the console to getting a game that really got me interested eventually on the Xbox hardware, which was this game, Tales of Vesperia. Because I was so into the Tales of games that I wanted this game, and eventually I did get my Xbox 360, which was the one that my brother had, and I was going to have this game for Christmas with it, and I did ask for it, but there was a but. Tales of Vesperia was a difficult game for us to get our hands on. It cost us quite a bit to get our hands on it. And because we were having so much trouble trying to find it, I picked up an alternative game, and it was going to be Star Ocean: The Last Hope, Star Ocean 4. And then Christmas came, and the joy on my face when I actually finally got Tales of Vesperia. It was worth it. And so I spent all Christmas morning on Tales of Vesperia. Nothing else mattered. Just me, the new Xbox, and with Tales of Vesperia. And it was worth it. And it was like, I couldn't believe it. They actually finally got the game I asked for. When they knew this game was going to be a pain in the ass to get, but we did get it, and it had to be re-released digitally on the Xbox Live store, because they knew this game would eventually be super popular. You know, help circumvent fans' interest in it. So I kind of wanted to talk on that. I currently may not have an interest to get an Xbox One or an Xbox Series SX unless my brothers or my family unless anyone is willing to, like, you know, give me like unless anyone gets their Xbox, the new Xbox, and they want to give their old Xbox to me as like a Christmas or a birthday present maybe, but it's a who knows thing. So I kind of wanted to talk about my story and the history with the Xbox, from hating it to liking it, finding games that are worth it, to playing, connecting with everybody, to playing with my friend, to playing with my family, friends, whatever, which I didn't do much of, but regardless, whether or not that I will continue to play Xbox is dependent on whether or not I have, whether my consoles are up to it or whatnot. But either way, I'm gonna leave it here for this video. Maybe sometime I'll play some games on the Xbox. But will I update my membership? Probably not. But regardless, I hope you guys will have stayed for this to watch my entire story, to watch me ramble about my Xbox story, ramble about a couple of games I've gotten, and maybe sometime in the future. sorry about that. And hopefully in future that if we ever do get out of COVID-19, that I can start collecting original old Xbox games that could potentially work on my Xbox 360 or potentially work on a future Xbox platform. So, I've been AQW Blaze 91, signing off.